You can't leave your front door, your back door, your side door, and all your windows open for all the rats and the nasty people and the thieves and the rapists and the murderers and the child molesters and sex traffickers to come in your home.
That was, of course, MAGA Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene at a Georgia Republican Party event. And I know that was sort of out of context. We're going to give you the full clip in just a second here, but prepare yourselves. As we've been seeing with MTG for some time now, she's losing grip. She's fallen apart and is becoming more and more deranged in her rhetoric and in her actions as she attempts to rile up the MAGA base going into November. But the rhetoric you're going to hear here is honestly further than I've even heard her go. And it's frightening stuff. So before I respond, here is MTG allowing herself to be caught on camera being a crazy person.
I am so disgusted at the people I work with in Washington that are cowards to ignore the war being waged on our southern border, waged on our country and our people. And I am unapologetically, radically America first. You can't leave your front door, your back door, your side door, and all your windows open for all the rats and the nasty people and the thieves and the rapists and the murderers and the child molesters and sex traffickers to come in your home and abuse your home and abuse your family and tear your house apart and then go out and talk tough and tell other people what to do. That's what America is doing. And it needs to end, everyone. It needs to end.
So for context, I'll read the caption of this video that she posted. I'm unapologetically America first. We need to finish President Trump's wall so we can keep out the rapists, the child molesters, the drug and sex traffickers, and the murderers. Americans are dying every single day from Joe Biden's border crisis. We must reelect President Trump and secure our borders. So a couple things on this. I've said before, if you are part of the group that I identify with, sort of pro-democracy, left of center people wanting Joe Biden to get reelected, then you have the correct stance likely on the policy relating to the southern border. But just because I often find myself whenever the topic of the border comes up, wanting to jump right into that policy conversation, because I know not enough people understand that the Democratic stance right now is actually pretty strong on the border, that can sometimes make it seem like I'm accepting the premise of someone like MTG. And that's why this segment's important. What you heard there, she, if you missed it, was referring to undocumented immigrants as rats. Rats. That is not something that can be a part of a rational conversation about border policy. That is actually oppositional. So when you hear someone like her pretend like she cares about, for example, fentanyl coming across the border, clearly not, because she chooses wild fear-mongering, unproductive dehumanization over a level-headed policy conversation. Do you know how I know that for certain? Well, because when we were trying to have a level-headed policy conversation that didn't include that insane rhetoric, it was her. And the likes of her little cohort in Congress directed by Donald Trump shooting down the border bill. And as an example, in the line she said Americans are dying every single day from Joe Biden's border crisis, likely one of the things she would cite is fentanyl deaths in the United States. The Stop Fentanyl Act was a part of this border bill that she helped to shoot down, along with, of course, Trump leading it. And so in the policy conversation, they're wrong. But let's be clear, she's not wanting to have a real conversation about real issues. Instead, it's just trying to freak the ever-loving you-know-what out of her constituents so that they're distracted from the fact that on the issues, on the policies, she's not actually accomplishing anything. This current Republican majority House of Representatives has been the second least effective in the history of the United States. And so they're not actually accomplishing things for their constituents. So instead, it has to be insane rhetoric like that to scare them into voting in November. Here's the next moment from this same event.
If we don't hit our home run in November, The Democrats will radically change our country worse than it's been changed. They have big plans. The tax cuts and savings plans that President Trump passed in his first presidency is going to expire. It expires this year. If Democrats control the House in January of 2025, they're going to write the tax code. And if Joe Biden, whether he knows it or not, is still president, he'll sign it into law, or whoever else it'll be. And your taxes are going to go up. Not only are your taxes going to go up, but any generational wealth that you're hoping to pass on to your children or grandchildren, they're going to wipe that out. Democrats don't believe Washington has a spending problem. They believe Washington has a revenue problem. Now you pair that with the crippling debt that we're under, and it's hard to even imagine. But then you pile on the fact that they want to totally end our America fossil fuel industry. They want to wipe it out. They want to cover America with solar panels and windmills. And they claim that they want us all to drive electric vehicles and we're supposed to plug them in and be able to have electricity based on the Green New Deal energy. None of it makes sense.
So she brought up the debt, and it honestly shocks me that MAGA Republicans in particular still get away with acting like they care about addressing the national debt when their dear leader, who they would never criticize, Donald Trump, added more to the national debt than any president in American history. She also mentioned, actually before getting to that, I was just reading about Biden's proposed budget actually cuts the deficit by $3 trillion over the course of 10 years. So that also contradicts what she was saying there. Then she's talking about Biden wanting to raise your taxes and obliterate your generational wealth. Well, he's committed to and has thus far followed through on not raising the taxes of anyone making less than $400,000 per year. She also said this tired talking point that fossil fuels are being crushed under Biden, even though, of course, domestic oil production has been hitting record highs under Biden, and energy production at large domestically has been at record highs under Biden, quite to the contrary of one of their favorite narratives. But then, yes, on fossil fuels, I feel like if you're rational, you understand eventually, we're going to have to transition off of fossil fuels. We can debate how quickly that needs to happen. I could make an argument, and I would, that it needs to happen sooner rather than later for the sake of the planet, but also even just pragmatically and for the sake of consumers. Green energy, time and time again, has proven to be cheaper for consumers, but they resist it just for this bizarre opposition to whatever Biden's for. And I think that went through most of what she said there. Let's move on to this third clip.
But I got to tell you, the great thing about President Trump is every time I talk to him, he's in a good mood. He's asking me how I'm doing. He's asking me, how is Georgia doing? And he's fighting. He's fighting the weaponized government that is trying to put him in jail for the rest of his life, which is a death sentence. He has a team of over 200 attorneys to fight against the weaponized government. But think about this part. Here's where the Republican Party comes in. I don't think he would have ever been in this situation if Republicans had fought for him in the first place. So we need to have learned our lesson. We need to be prepared that if we can get him elected, and I believe we can. I truly believe we can. I believe Georgia and the Georgia GOP can come together, we can unify, we can fight as hard as we can together, we can keep our eye on that ball as that pitch comes in spinning and moving through the air, and I believe we can hit a home run in November 2024.
So, as I was watching that, I was thinking about, remember that in 2020, after the 2020 election, and ever since, they've been claiming that millions and millions. Trump acts like maybe he won the popular vote even in 2020 and 2016. So millions of votes were flipped by whoever, Dominion voting machines, or by big, massive dumps of ballots, as Trump said. All these different conspiracy theories allude to the idea that millions and millions of votes were fraudulently counted. And this was taking place, remember, according to them, when Trump was president. So while Trump was running the federal government, when he had a bunch of power right under his nose, millions of votes were fraudulently cast and counted for candidate Joe Biden at the time. But now that Biden's president, because they can't say, yeah, let's just give up because the people who rigged the election are going to do it again, they're acting like somehow if they vote in large enough numbers, millions and millions more than they're planning on flipping, then they could still somehow elect Trump. Now, obviously, they could elect Trump because we do have functioning, secure, legitimate elections. But according to their conspiracy theories, it's very strange how they're able to both think there's a good chance that they'll once again flip millions of votes so easily without being caught. But also, if they vote in large enough numbers, that becomes impossible somehow. I don't get it. Why not just give up if you really do believe? I guess that's my advice, MAGA. Why even care if they're going to steal it? But they'll definitely, if Trump loses, push those dangerous conspiracy theories once again. So brace for impact on that. By the way, one question for you all, and I want to hear from you on this one. I was pondering, is Marjorie Taylor Greene the worst member of Congress? Let me know in the comments. If you think no somehow, it's a tough competition though. But if you think no, let me know who you think is worse.